Hi everyone, Lisa Haven here. Well, there's been lots of rumble over the internet about the United Nations and if and are they going to be hitting the streets of Chicago. Well, I've got a long report to share with you and I'm going to bring it all together and show you the real truth behind it all. But from the very start, what I want to do is take you back to the Strong Cities Network. Now, this network was propped up and pushed up by Loretta Lynch in 2015, I believe. Now, I'll throw up a report that I did back in 2015 that details the Strong Cities Initiative in full. And if you want to check it out, I'll leave a link for that below. Now, what is this Strong Cities Initiative? Well, and I'm going to read straight from their website because this is their website, strongcitiesnetwork.org. And here's what they have to say about who they are. It was launched at the United Nations in September of 2015. The SCN is the first ever global network of mayors, municipal level policymakers, and practitioners united in building social cohesion and community resilience to counter violent extremism in all its forms. It further goes on that it is led by the ISD and comprised of more than 100 cities. The SCN builds collaboration between mayors, political actors, and frontline teams to tackle polarization, hate, and violence in local communities in every major global region. The network catalyst inspires and multiplies community-centric approaches in action to counter violent extremism through peer learning and expert training. It operates with a set of fundamental principles agreed by all members that protect and promote human rights and civil liberties in all aspects as it works to prevent violent extremism. Let's be frank. What is this? Well, the United Nations Peacekeeping Force is a global police force. That's what it is. And it's linking not at the federal level. They're kind of sideswiping the White House to kind of give a recap. Like I said, I've touched on this a few times, but they're sideswiping the White House, Donald Trump, and saying, hey, if you're a city and you want to join the United Nations, let's get on this list. Now, here is a screenshot of about 100 cities that have joined so far, and I'll show you just the ones in the U.S. So far, it's Anaheim, Atlanta, Aurora, Chattanooga, Denver, L.A., Louisville, Minneapolis, Montgomery County, New York, and San Diego. Those are the ones here in America that have signed the death warrant to the United Nations. Well, to give you a better picture, they have these cities that not only joined here in America, but all across the country, everywhere, from Turkey to Europe to Germany to America. So they're forming this global peace initiative. Now, let me also throw up on the screen their demobilization and where they basically are hiring people at the UN to take away or practice taking away disarmament of people. So this is disarmament and recruitment is what you see there, that the UN has a whole website. And I said this the other day in my report, but they have a whole website devoted to teaching the UN peacekeepers how to disarm the people. Why do they do that? Because they want no power in the arms of the average everyday citizen. They want to keep all that because absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. So that's where we're at. So now that you've got the background on that, what's going on in Chicago? Well, check out this report from ChicagoTribune.com, and it's titled, Bring in the UN to Solve Chicago's Genocide, Brooklyn says. Now, the report goes on to detail how Cook County Commissioner Richard Boykin, excuse me, I said that wrong, Boykin says, but Richard Boykin traveled to New York to discuss Chicago's violence program with the UN Assistant Secretary General for Peace Building Support. Now, it was stated, or Boykin stated during this talk with the UN Assistant Secretary, here's what he said. He said, the United Nations has a track record for protecting minority populations. There was tribal warfare between the Tuts and the Huts in Africa, and the UN deployed peacekeeping troops there to help save the populations and reduce the bloodshed. We have to do something. Black people in Chicago make up 30% of the population, but 80% of those who are killed by gun violence. Now, Boykin said that the UN peacekeepers would be more suited to patrolling the streets than the United States National Guard because they are better trained for the role. Now, that is coming in response to Donald Trump, who had made a statement earlier on that he wanted to bring in the National Guard to Chicago in order to calm down the violence in the city. Now, Boykin is responding to that, to the Assistant General over there at the United Nations, and saying, hey, we don't want to do the own United U.S. force. That's what our National Guard does. That's what they're meant for. No, let's go to a global, unelected bureaucracy group of people at the United Nations and bring them in to keep the peace, because they're not more suited. That is a load of bull, in my opinion, and that's exactly what we're seeing here from Boykin. Now, to answer the question, are they going to be deployed to the streets? Well, obviously, they're not being deployed right now, and that's not on the table. This was simply just a discussion. But to add flame to the fire, let me add one other thing to that. Chicago was not listed on the Strong Cities Network list of cities, at least on the list that I obtained. They weren't on there. Now, that as a result of these talks between the mayor and the UN Secretary General or Assistant Secretary there, they could likely request to become part of the Strong Cities Network. So that's something that I could see come out of that. And then once that is done, it's very likely or possible, I would not say very likely, maybe more possible, that if they wanted, they could call in the UN peacekeeping force. If you want to even call it peacekeeping, I don't know, call in the blue hats to the cities of Chicago. So if they add their name to the list and they want UN peacekeepers to come keep the peace in Chicago, technically the Strong Cities Network allows them to do just that. So hopefully that clears up everything for you. No, they're not on the streets right now. Could it change in the future? Absolutely. Is that something they're pondering and talking about? Yes. The mayor of Chicago, the UN are talking about it. And my prediction, they'll get on the Strong Cities Network. And if the mayor feels like he wants to call them in, he'll call them in time. But this, again, is something that I warned about on my channel. And the United Nations has no right in our country. They are again, we have no say. I mean, they have a Saudi Arabian leader on the human rights panel. Saudi Arabia, as in the place that persecutes women, and through Sharia law, you're okay to stone your wife if she cheats on you or has an affair or looks at a man in a wrong way or pulls her veil off. She can be severely beaten. I don't know about you, but that isn't exactly a human rights person who should be on that panel. But this is the kind of motivation and kind of thing that we are dealing with at the United Nations level, and I smell all kinds of red flags. And again, before Obama left office, he had one last thing to say to the American people, and that included, if you were watching on my channel, these words, and that is this: America must give up some of its sovereignty, that's our freedom, what we have here, in order to bow down to this new global order. Anyhow, wanted to bring you the latest on all of that. Don't forget to check out my partner, virtualshield.com/Lisa Haven. Make sure you have a VPN, something that scrambles and keeps the big guy out. And again, if they go knocking on the VPN door, they don't keep their logs. That is why I chose this particular company. And there's 20% off on that right now. I also have other sponsors down there, getthetea.com, so check him out as well. Anyhow, thanks again for tuning in. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.